Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
I am very, very pleased to welcome back to the program Elliot Resnick. Elliot Resnick was the former chief editor, or is the former chief editor of the Jewish Press. He's the author and an editor of several books, including Movers and Shakers, which is a 3-volume edition. He's the host of the Elliot Resnick Show podcast, and he's someone who's recently been convicted and sentenced for his role at the January 6th, 2021 protests that took place at the Capitol. Elliot, it's been a long time. It's great to have you back on the radio.
Me again.
Elliot, you were the editor of a very prominent Orthodox Jewish newspaper centered in Brooklyn at the time of January 6, 2021, the Jewish Press, which has been publishing since 1960 and is described as the largest independent weekly Jewish newspaper in the United States. Why did you go to the Capitol on January 6th? What were you hoping to do?
Well, I've never been one of those people who believe in just sitting home and doing nothing. A lot of people they write articles and that's it. They feel like they've done their duty. I've always felt I wanted to do a little bit more than that. I always liked Henry David Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience. He had a problem with the Mexican-American War. But he didn't just have a problem with it and say, okay, I said my piece. He actually decided, I'm not paying taxes this year because my tax money is going to fund a war, which I think is immoral and maybe also illegal. And so he refused to pay taxes one year and went to prison for it. So I've always kind of admired that activism. So I kind of wanted to do something. I really felt that the election was not on the level. And I thought that maybe if we go to Washington and there were enough people there, then maybe we could accomplish something. I don't know. Maybe there could be put some pressure. And Trump certainly thought that it would be helpful. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go.
So you go down there, and you've been a journalist for many years, but just to be clear, and so folks understand your mindset at the time, you weren't necessarily going down there to chronicle what was happening and write about what you were observing. You weren't there in a journalistic capacity. You were there as in an activist capacity, right?
That's correct.
Right. And so what did you do when you got there? What happened from your perspective?
So I got there around 8:30, 9 in the morning, and I went to the Ellipse. That's where there was supposed to be a rally. The rally started late, but I was there around 9 o'clock, and so we're there for around 4 hours, which is when Trump finished speaking around 1 o'clock. And all we're doing for 4 hours is talking about how the election is stolen, or probably stolen anyways. And we're talking about the people who did steal it. It wasn't just nice, normal Americans who we thought stole it. These were leftists, we thought vicious leftists, people who had presided over 9 months of COVID tyranny. If you remember, they had shut down businesses. You couldn't visit your dying parents in a hospital. You couldn't arrange normal funerals for your parents if they did die. Your kids couldn't go to school. Your teenagers couldn't go to college. So these were the people that we had thought had stolen an election. And for 4 hours, that's all we're doing is either talking about it or listening to speakers at the rally talk about it. And so after the rally is done, we go to the Capitol because there was supposed to be another rally at the Capitol after we were being at the Ellipse. And I'm approaching the Capitol, and I'm looking for a rally. Usually when you get to a rally, you see a whole group of people in a certain area, and you see it's sort of fenced off. And as I'm approaching the Capitol, I'm like, where's this rally? Where are the people? Where's the fenced-off area? I didn't see any of that. And it was really weird. I'm like, what's going on here? And I just see people milling about all over the place. And I see some construction, which is really scaffolding for the inauguration, but I didn't really understand what that was. And also call me naive, but I had not been to the Capitol since I was a kid. And I had this mental image in my head that maybe we would get to the Capitol and we would see some politicians entering the building, and we could kind of scream at them from afar, and they'll still probably do the wrong thing, but at least, maybe they'll feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, maybe they'll feel a little bit guilty about it, or if we don't see politicians, at least they'll hear us chanting from outside the building. But I get to the building, it's humongous, there are no doors on the side that I approached, at least I didn't see any, there were no windows. I'm like, they're not even going to know that we're here. And then, I still didn't really understand what was going on. Like, where's the rally? All of a sudden, some lady says, let's go to the side of the building. Okay. So I go to the side of the building. We turn one corner. Now we're on the north end of the building. There's nothing really there. And then we turn another corner. Now we're on the east side of the building. And as we're walking, and by the way, we're already in an area that we're not supposed to be in, but none of us had any idea because already an hour earlier, the fences had been torn down. So we're in an area that we're not supposed to be in, but we don't know that. And we're walking forward, and up ahead at like the center staircase, which is like a massive staircase, I see a sea of people in front of the staircase, hundreds upon hundreds of people. And I see the staircase guarded by like 5 or 10 people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I basically saw opportunity at that point because also you have to understand, number one, we wanted to express our anger at the politicians. Number two, we had just experienced a summer of riots. And during that summer of riots, as you remember very well, there was looting, there was burning, there was killing, there was absolute mayhem and anarchy. And law enforcement did almost nothing. Store owners would call the police and the police wouldn't show up. So there was complete anarchy. So as far as I was concerned, and I'm sure many other January 6th protesters in the back of their head, okay, there are new rules in town. If you're really upset about something, you could get a little bit rowdy. Now, mind you, we didn't do anything close to what the left did. The left was upset about some man who was either killed or died in Minnesota, and therefore they were looting and stealing sneakers in Manhattan. That's not what we did. We were mad at the politicians inside a particular building, and we want to enter the building to express our anger at those politicians. And so I saw a staircase of hundreds of people in front of it, guarded by like 10 people. And so I joined that crowd of people who were storming up the staircase because I thought it was important for us to express and ask for a redress of our grievances from the politicians.
Now, ultimately, you pled guilty to obstructing law enforcement during the January 6th events. Walk us through what happened. What did you do? What was the crime that you pled guilty to exactly?
Right. So it's Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 231A3, which, as you basically just said, it says that it's illegal to obstruct, impede, or interfere with a law enforcement officer as he's trying to perform his duties during the course of a civil disorder, which in colloquial terms is basically a public disturbance. And so when we got to the top of those stairs, it was a crowd of people. The doors were locked, so there were some people who tried to start opening the doors or breaking open the doors. And I'm towards the front of the crowd, not trying to break open the doors, but I'm towards the front of the crowd. And behind me, there's a police officer who starts pepper spraying some of the people in front of me. So at first, I didn't do anything because, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative. I was raised with, right and wrong and law and order, and you don't touch a police officer, certainly not in an adversarial type way. But after a few seconds, I just kind of felt like a chump. I'm standing there as he's pepper spraying people. And number one, pepper spray stings rather badly, so he was hurting people. And number two, he was preventing people from trying to open the doors, and I thought it was important for us to get inside to scream at to express our anger at the politicians who were about to certify what we thought were very, very shady election results. So I lifted my hand up and I grabbed the wrist of the policeman for 2.5 seconds. And I don't say 2.5 seconds because I'm trying to be cute. I'm saying 2.5 because it literally was 2.5 seconds, and you could see the videos available online, and you could see it for yourself. But for that crime, I'm now supposed to go to prison for 4 months, followed by 4 months of home detention, followed by 24 months of
supervised release. Right. So you got this 4-month prison sentence. Do you think that was too much, too little, or just about right?
I always say if I were living in 1940s America where you could get arrested for spitting in Central Park, then I would be 100% okay with my conviction and my sentence. But we're not living in 1940s America. We're living in an America where people could steal up to $1,000 of merchandise in certain districts in the United States and nothing happens to you. We're living in an America where anti-Israel protesters could block roads, could block airports, could block bridges, could march on streets without a permit, and nothing happens to them. We're living in America, the 2020 riots, they burned, they looted, they stole, and almost nothing happened to those people. Not only did nothing happen to those people, New York City agreed to pay $14 million.
So you think it's selective prosecution, basically?
Oh, absolutely, 100%, yes.
All right. Given everything that's occurred here, but by the way, do you have any idea of when you'll begin serving your sentence or where?
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent prevent expensive emergencies and pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
So there's some Jewish holidays coming up, so my lawyer asked the judge if it's okay that if I start serving after the Jewish holidays, and the judge said yes. So we're talking about very early November.
And do you know where? Are you going to get to stay close by?
Well, we hope close by. It's not clear yet. It might be upstate New York. It might be New Jersey. It might be Connecticut. But
all right. Well, hopefully you'll still be in our listening area and you'll be able to listen to the show. Make sure you have a radio there.
I hope so.
Do you have any regrets about this whole thing, Elliot? Do you regret going to the Capitol? Do you regret any of your actions that day? If you had a time machine and could go back and do everything or any portion of that day differently, what would you do differently?
I guess what I regret most of all is that the Republican leadership did not use the chaos that we created to their advantage. Now, the chaos was not planned. I would never have been part of a planned, riot or storming of the Capitol. I just would have thought it was wrong. But it did not happen. It wasn't planned. It happened organically. It happened just kind of like, one thing led to another. And once that chaos happened, I think the Republican leadership should have used us the same way the leftist leadership used the riots of the summer. What did the leftists do during the summer? Did they openly condone or praise the riots? Not really. I mean, people like Kamala Harris donated money to an organization to bail out some of the Minnesota rioters, so she kind of indirectly condoned it. But most Democrat leaders basically said, look, we might not like the violence on the street, and we don't really condone it, but there's so much racism in this country among the police force that we understand why the people on the street exploded. So if you solve the racism problem, you'll solve the rioting problem. I think right-wing leaders could have done the same exact thing on January 6th. They could have said, look, we don't approve of anyone breaking into buildings or breaking the law, but with such a shady election, we've been begging you for answers for 2 months, and all you've done for 2 months is called us kooks and given us the silent treatment. And it wasn't a fringe group. Again, this was like almost nearly half the country. And so when you do that, there's going to be a reaction. So look, here's what you should do. Give us an audit of the election, agree to a proper audit, and then we'll tell the crowd to calm down. But if you don't do that, I'm sorry, we can't really do very much about it. We understand why they reacted the way they did.
So I understand that you regret how it turned out vis-a-vis the Republican leadership, but is there anything that you regret doing?
Not really, because honestly, I don't think there's really a greater crime than stealing an election. I don't know if it was stolen. I don't know for sure that it was stolen, but I do know that they definitely covered up and refused to give us any answers for 2 months, which in itself is kind of a crime, I think. A crime of complete arrogance and complete disdain for the will and the desires of the people. So I don't think it's such a huge deal to break into a building to scream at some politicians. And the left does this all the time, and I don't think it's a big deal. And by the way, most people did not think it was a huge deal because many January 6th protesters went home that night and posted on social media. That's how much they didn't realize that they were going to get in trouble for what they did.
Did I see an article yesterday that you were banned from another dating service ahead of your imprisonment? What's going on with that? I just saw the headline and I wasn't sure what to make of that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, it was for some dating. I don't even like really these dating apps, and I haven't really had much luck at all over the years because they're all the same. Everyone says the same thing about themselves, and you can't tell anything about a person from those like 5 lines they say about themselves.
Well, I would say at this point you've got a pretty unique story, Elliot.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I thought to myself, you know what? If I write that I was in the Capitol on January 6th, I'll weed out 90% of the girls, and the 10% of girls will remain. Anyone who contacts me or wants to meet me after that, they're probably kind of like my speed. And so I thought, let me try this. I mean, so that was the thinking behind it. But apparently there are some people who run these dating apps who don't like January 6th people, and so I was banned from at least 2.
Yeah, got it. Any other ideas on how to meet women at this point, Elliot, if these dating apps are not going to work?
I don't know. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and we believe kind of like it's called basharat. We kind of believe in fate, not fate where you just sit at home and do nothing, but kind of you do what you have to do, try to give yourself opportunities, but afterwards it's in God's hands. So I don't know.
Gotcha. While I have you here, let me ask you a little bit about the Middle East situation and related issues, because I know you have pretty strong feelings about that. If people are just tuning in, by the way, we're talking with Elliot Resnick. He's an author. He's the host of the Elliot Resnick Show podcast. You have interviewed, a lot of people may be familiar with Rabbi Kahane. Rabbi Kahane advocated for getting rid of all the Arabs in Israel and the areas that are referred to as the occupied territories. He wanted to, if I understand the situation correctly, which I may not, he wanted to basically buy off those that were willing to go, but deport the rest if they're not. And basically, his rationale for this was that it was just not possible for Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side. The reason I'm asking you about it is you've interviewed students of his and his chief of staff, his one-time chief of staff. What did you learn from them? And how has it helped form your own thoughts on this war nearly a year later against the Palestinians that attacked Israel? And what do you make of that sort of solution in general?
I actually think it's the most humane solution. There's no reason for us to be living together. Mayor Kahane used to always say, Rabbi Kahane used to always say, I have no desire to kill Arabs. I just want the Arabs to live in their countries in peace and let us live in our country in peace. I looked up, I think we've killed 25,000 Arabs before this war started. We killed roughly 25,000 Arabs over the last, 30, 40 years, Israel has. There's no reason for it. There's no reason we should be killing each other every single day. Rabbi Kahane basically said, look, he said there was never going to be peace. He said you have to have contempt for the Arabs for you to think that they will ever accept the Jewish presence in the land of Israel. He used to quote a Zionist line, which is, we came to a desert and we turned the desert into a garden. And Rabbi Kahane used to say, yes, but in the Arab mind, it was their desert and now it's your garden. So they're never going to accept. They know that they were there for a long time. Look, we were there 2,000 years ago, and God gave it to us, but that's not the way they see it. They see it as we were here for a long time. It's our land, and the Jews came in here in the early 1900s and took over our land, and they will never accept Israel's presence. Mayor Kahane used to say you can't buy an Arab's national pride with an indoor toilet. So just because you make their lives better economically does not mean that they will accept your presence. So he said the only humane solution is that there's a lot of land here. The Middle East is very big. Whilst you live in your Arab country, I will live in my Jewish country. And that, it's kind of like, when your kids are fighting, you put one to this side of you and the other kids the other side of you, and you just separate them. And so I think it's a humane solution. I mean, people, and by the way, FDR, Roosevelt thought it was a good idea. Israel Zangwill thought it was a good idea. Herbert Hoover thought it was a good idea. So this was actually a mainstream idea once upon a time. I know now it sounds very radical, but once upon a time, actually, it was kind of mainstream.
Lastly, on the subject of the war in the Middle East, it seems like there's a new front which has recently heated up, and that's the aspect of the war in between Israel and Hezbollah. We've seen a number of attacks, and obviously this has gotten a lot of attention in the last week or so because of the exploding pagers and the exploding walkie-talkies. Former director of the CIA and former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, who's generally considered actually a pretty moderate guy in Democratic circles, he was talking to CBS News over the weekend, and this is how he referred to that Israeli pager operation against Hezbollah. This is courtesy of CBS News.
The ability to be able to place an explosive in technology that is very prevalent these days and turn it into a war of terror, really, a war of terror. This is something new.
Is it terrorism?
I don't think there's any question that it's a form of terrorism.
Former Secretary of Defense says what Israel did was terrorism. Something tells me you may disagree.
Yes, I do disagree. You know, it's funny. I am actually not for I'm for fighting the old-fashioned way. I like the way the Americans fought against the Germans and the Japanese, which is that you crush the will of the enemy. And the will of the enemy is not just the soldiers. It's the people who actually grow the food for the soldiers, who provide the money for the soldiers, who give the emotional support for the soldiers. So I'm actually quite all right with targeting civilians. But Israel's government and officially America's government, officially nowadays, we're not for that. So if you were against targeting civilians, this would be the absolute perfect operation. You are targeting pagers that only terrorists have. So it is super targeted. You can't get more targeted than that. And when people like Panetta criticize Israel even for that, it's just laughable, honestly.
Elliot Resnick, best of luck, and make sure you do have a radio for your brief prison sentence. It'll help the time go like that. Thank you for joining me on the radio. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I will listen, God willing, in prison.
Thank you, Elliot Resnick. If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, you can give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.